Do not be alarmed. It's just a couple of guys. Who are these guys? Ray Regina, beloved former mayor of St. Charles, lifetime educator, and Pat Crimmins, a Geneva lawyer, but he's actually okay. From Elgin to Aurora, from Naperville to Elburn, these guys are gonna talk everything. So, here's Pat and Ray.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Just a Couple of Guys, now in our second season, a podcast devoted, as you know, to us talking everything. And who are we? Well, first of all, hello, my partner, Geneva lawyer and former Kane County prosecutor, Pat Crimmins. Hi, Pat. How are you today?
Morning, Ray. How are you?
Good. Pat and yours truly, Ray Regina, have a very timely podcast for you today. We talk public safety with the well-respected and honorable police chief of St. Charles, Chief James Keegan. Chief Keegan will join us shortly, and later we tackle, no pun intended, the world of college football with Chief Keegan's nephew, Trevor Keegan, the starting guard for the nationally ranked Michigan Wolverines. Trevor and his teammates were the subject of a cover story in Sports Illustrated just this past week. All of this when we return after a word from one of our fine sponsors. You stay tuned.
Tony, your parents know you're over here again, right?
Yep.
Great.
Tony lives next door. See, his parents decided to just use their phone for home internet. So when everyone is on, Tony's over here streaming and drinking all my soda.
My dog.
Switch to fast internet on the Xfinity 10G network today. The future starts now.
We're going to bed, Tony.
Good night. I'll lock up if I leave.
Get real home internet on the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity.
Well, we're back and very pleased to have as our guest this morning the affable and honorable James Keegan of the great city of St. Charles. And Chief, it's really nice to have you on our podcast. Pat reminds me offline, and I'll let him take the detail, that we've actually had you on once before.
I think I was your guinea pig, if I remember correctly. Before you guys went live, I was at the library. I think that was your initiation into podcasts.
That's right. That's right. It's very exciting. Library has a wonderful studio there.
Yep.
And that was old school before we got big, you know.
Chief, why don't you familiarize our audience with a little bit of your background? You came to St. Charles almost a decade ago, and but prior to that, what was your experience and that led you to the position of police chief of St. Charles?
Well, thank you, Ray. So I've been a police officer a little over 31 years. Was hired by the village of Streamwood right out of college, and had a wonderful career there. I spent 22 years there. Went through all the different positions. I was fortunate enough to be promoted pretty early on. Made sergeant back in the late 90s, 1997, and had a wonderful career. The last 2.5 years I was in Streamwood. I was the police chief, and then when this job opened up, this is just to me a destination type city and department. I was lucky enough to get selected from a large pool of applicants, and I've been here with the city a little over 9 years. I started June of 2014.
And it should be said that you and a couple of your colleagues, notably Peter Suhr in Public Works, led the charge, if you will, with city council support, of course, to build a brand new police station, Central West on Route 64 in St. Charles.
Well, yeah, and I think there's a certain guy I'm talking to that was a big proponent of that as well. So no, we're happy to be here. We moved in actually this month, 4 years ago. We moved in September of 2019. Been here 4 years. Redeveloped the defunct Valley Shopping Center, which I know Mr. Crimmins grew up pretty close to. But we were happy to see that redevelopment, and our staff couldn't be happier to be here.
Pat?
Well, yeah, Chief, I missed the Grims and, you know, the candy stores I used to stop by on my way to Richmond School. Anyways, Chief, the cash bail statute became effective, I think, September 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to get back into all the Safety Act and everything else, but have you had any specific dealings with it as yet? And if not, why not? And if so, how's it going so far?
We've had a number of incidents already, and for the most part, things have worked out as best that they can. Like anything else, I've tried telling my staff this a number of times. I've had to deal with a lot of pivots in my 30+ years. I remember when seatbelts became mandatory, or you couldn't smoke anymore in restaurants and things. There's been a lot of pivots in our law, recreational cannabis, conceal and carry permits and things. So I think it's just one more pivot that law enforcement has to do. I'm optimistic that things will work out. However, there has been a couple of hiccups. We're working with the state's attorney's office and we try, and the judges, of course, to try to get through those. I try to be that optimistic police chief that leads the force in a positive manner, and I'm hoping for the best. We do plan for obviously some bumps along the road, but thus far, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, the problems obviously can be many if things go bad. I mean, people don't show up for court. Dangerous people are out of custody and bad things happen. You guys obviously have to watch out for dangerous people now that have already been arrested but are now released back into the population. So it makes your job more difficult. But you've indicated there's a partnership there with the state's attorney's office as well as the judges, and you're going to work through it as best you can. St. Charles, thankfully, doesn't have a high level of violent felony offenders, but you have your fair share. All of it's the body cams and everything else is making it more difficult for a local jurisdiction like St. Charles. How do you deal with it from a resource point of view and from just a manpower point of view?
It's tough, Pat. And I look back at my career and I think about some of the changes and quite frankly, I just keep dusting myself and getting back up on my feet and hoping that, we can push through some of these. But, a lot of these are unfunded mandates. And there's been a lot of law changes. There's a lot of training mandates. For instance, we've written a whole bunch of grants. We were just notified yesterday that the city received a $130,000 grant from the federal government to implement body cams. Very happy with that, but the cost of that is going to be exponentially more than that. So obviously the city's going to have to pick that up. We obtained a state grant this year for just over $1 million to build a tactical training center out at our outdoor firing range. And some of that equipment that's going to be housed in that building is going to be equipment that's mandated by the state as far as some of the training we go through, which is more of a virtual component. So there's a lot of changes. When you talk about cashless bail and things, the old days of seeking a warrant for somebody when they offend, or maybe someone who doesn't attend court, whether it's a failure to appear warrant or a bond forfeiture warrant, those type of situations, the offender would have their information entered in a computer system, and any time they were stopped by law enforcement, they would be subject to arrest. That's different now. There's summonses that are served. We're not process servers as sworn peace officers. Only deputies are, as far as in the court facility. So and through the county. So it's going to be different. They're going to be sent. Offenders are going to be sent notice of court dates. I do worry about recidivism and repeat offenders. And we're going to do the best we can in law enforcement to dot our I's, cross our T's, and do the best job we can. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this works out. I am.
And Chief, you said something about unfunded mandates, and of course, cities get nicked with that all the time. With respect to this particular law, I read an article just the other day that said probably more than half the counties in the state are really up against the wall and just can't meet the demands of the Safety Act because half the counties have less than 25,000 people. You talk to other police chiefs around the state. My guess is that's a true statement.
Absolutely. And coming from Cook County, most of my career, we're very fortunate. In St. Charles is mostly in Kane County, as you both know. We have a small sliver in DuPage, but we're fortunate here. But there still is a burden on taxpayers.
And one more thing, and Pat referred to this earlier, bad things still do happen. And regardless of the Safety Act, there could be a state's attorney who is a little bit shy about keeping somebody detained. There could be a judge who makes a decision that is liberal in nature, that lets somebody out or whatever the case may be. So this is not going to go away just because of the Safety Act.
No, and you know, we have three buckets we can proceed with. So one is a cite and release. Another is detain the subject, the arrestee, and then bring them to court for conditions of bail. And then the third would be to ask for a detention. You know, we're going to err on the side of being cautious. And if our officers feel that there is some conditions of bail that we're going to seek, I'll talk about that middle bucket. We're going to take that person to court, and we're going to ask for conditions of bail and put the decision on the judge.
You know, if I may, I think that's the safest way to go too. And I hate that law enforcement has become this cover myself. But at the end of the day, you guys, nobody can blame you guys for taking it before the judge and saying, we want detention. If they say no, you've done your job. And if something horrible happens, you can tell the taxpayers you did your job. So it puts everybody in a situation where they have to try and protect themselves from the horrible possibilities, and that's not government to me. That's not a good way of managing government. One of the things I wanted to talk about, you talked a little bit about the relationship you have with the state's attorney's office, but part of what's happened with St. Charles and other municipalities is you've gone local for some prosecutions, whether it's a DUI or whether it's this tobacco and massage thing that we've talked through previously. Tell us a little bit about the benefit as it relates to you and the department and just the taxpayers of St. Charles to go local as opposed to going through the state's attorney's office as is typical for charges.
That's a good question, Pat. You know, and I'll call it continuity. So, you know, you have the same prosecutor or prosecutors. You work with the same law firm, and you get that continuity not only with how we do business, but the attorney or attorneys feel comfortable with our officers. We have a familiar, you know, our conviction rate and our success rate prosecuting some of those cases locally has been just exponential. And, you know, I know we're going to talk about it, but our Mayor Ray and I started that when I came in along mayor 9.5 years ago. And, you know, we're really proud of what we've done. We shut down some vape and tobacco shops for selling to minors. We shut down some massage facilities for inappropriate conduct. We've held the bar owners and the liquor establishments accountable. We've actually increased our liquor licenses tenfold. But I think our problems and some of our unruly behaviors decreased exponentially just with, once again, continuity, accountability. You know, we're in the establishments. We know the bar owners, the tavern owners, our liquor stores. We got out on foot. We're seeing, you know, that the whole cliche, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. We try to be seen, and we're accessible. And I think our officers just do a fantastic job in making our social environment here in St. Charles one that's welcoming and safe.
And this commission that you talk about, what exactly is that for people who are not from St. Charles?
So I think in layman's terms, the easiest way to really break it down is the licensee or the establishment carries a license. So let's say you have an underage sale to a minor in a tavern. We would hold that bar owner, or excuse me, that bartender accountable with an unlawful sale to a minor. But because that employee is an agent for the business, and that bar owner or restaurant has to make sure they maintain operational control, there would also be a violation heard against the licensee or the establishment. And that's where the liquor commission comes in, or what we call the alcohol, tobacco, and massage commission. And there's dual accountability, not only on the employee, but also the establishment. And because of that, we've held the establishments accountable for what goes good, and obviously if anything goes bad, they're brought in and their violations heard.
So it sounds as though this is a good thing in terms of control of the process. You don't have to deal with the other office, and they change prosecutors every 10 minutes, and you're very comfortable with who you have and why you have them, and so you seem to have a control over the situation, and that gives you more power, I would think, more authority, because people understand the consistency of what's been charged before and what the punishments have been before and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's, delegated authority. So, a restaurant owner, a massage facility, whoever we're talking about, they might delegate the authority to, let's say, their massage therapist or their clerk at the tobacco store. But at the end of the day, the ownership group is accountable for the actions of their employees. And that's where the commission comes in, where, they need to train their employees. They need to make sure they have clear expectations of what their operating procedures are. And should there be a violation of a city ordinance or a state law, we're going to hold that licensee or that establishment accountable. And I think we were one of the first cities within the city or villages within the state to do a massage commission. And we really cleaned up that behavior. And we've done so also with tobacco. I think we were one of the first cities or villages to do a tobacco commission. And because of that, we have a lot less problems, I think, than some of our other Chicagoland communities.
We're with Chief Keegan of St. Charles, and we're going to take a break right now and have a word from one of our great sponsors. When we return, Ray's going to talk a little bit about a particular investigation, and we're going to get into the assault weapon ban a little bit. So with that, we're going to go and hear a word from our sponsor. So,
3, 2, 1. Yeah, got the S there, Pat. Very good. I think we still have multiple sponsors.
Pat,
we'll see.
Paul's not on strike. Paul is not on strike.
No, he is not. He is not.
And I have not been visited by President Biden for 12
I was going to say, if you were on strike, we could get the president in here to walk the picket line with you.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Maybe. All right, we're ready to roll again.
I'm not sure walk is the operative word there, but right. Moving on. Okay, you guys ready?
It is election year, guys. Let's forget
it. Is. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
We are back with Chief James Keegan of the St. Charles Police Department. And Chief, it stands that not too long ago we had a regional case, if I could say it that way, that St. Charles was right in the middle of and made a lot of news, and you certainly were on the news. And perhaps for some who did not know about this situation, only because from my point of view, St. Charles took leadership role in this particular investigation. And I'm talking about the closure of a, quote, brothel in St. Charles and other cities. And I'll let you elaborate on all of that. I suppose something like that is ongoing, and we're not in a position to ask you any questions about what may happen down the line. But perhaps you could help our audience understand how you got involved as a police department, how some of the other departments may have been involved, and how that all played itself out to the result that happened in the arrest of a number of people.
Sure. So, we got a tip that there was some foot traffic going in and out of an apartment here on the near west side in St. Charles. So good old fashioned police work took it from there. We set up surveillance and started taking a look at what the tip curtailed, and lo and behold, we started seeing a lot of traffic. We corroborated that tip. Some of that information then led us to believe that some of the traffic in and out of that particular apartment was consistent, as far as we saw some behavior that we thought was indicative of trafficking. Some investigative techniques took it from there, and our detectives did a phenomenal job of really getting behind the scenes and determining that this was part of a larger scale operation. So in fact, through mutual aid efforts and working with a number of municipalities, we located a number of brothels in the greater Chicagoland area: Aurora, South Elgin, Hanover Park, unincorporated Palatine, and then with a nexus to the city of Chicago. So we brought all those entities together, along with some assistance from our federal partners, and did a sweep, if you will. And we entered each of the apartments with warrants at the same time. And I think we recovered about 20 or so victims at these brothels. So we're really proud of the work that's been done up to this point, but there's still, to your point, a lot of work to do.
And you said victims, so obviously we're talking about the fact that and you mentioned this many times in various reports, human trafficking was going on beyond the boundaries of the United States.
Yeah, and it's important to note these ladies are victims. They were brought into the United States for the sole purpose of being victimized and exploited. And we recognize that. And unfortunately, some of these women fled countries in South America where the living conditions were deplorable, right? So what's going on here in the United States to them, and we tried offering social services to all of them. Some accepted, some did not. But the conditions that they were forced to live with and the behavior that they were, instructed to do, unfortunately, paralleled what was going on in their home country. And in some instances, they had better living conditions here than where they were from. And hence, some of them didn't want to take our help and services. We still offered that and things, but human trafficking goes on a little bit more than the average citizen thinks. We've seen it before in St. Charles. I talked about our massage facilities in the past. I think we've had 6 or 8 licenses, if I remember correctly, maybe 7. I guess I'll meet in the middle there, that were revoked for acts of prostitution and unlawful behavior. And in almost each and every occurrence, we found evidence of human trafficking and referred those cases on to the federal government. So it's not the first time we've come across this.
And so if we're talking about human trafficking, we are talking about an operation that it does exist here in the United States. And so you're encountering groups of individuals here who have an organization that's putting this all together and practicing in a variety of different suburbs.
Absolutely. And some of these folks that migrate to the United States, there's some that come over lawfully with visas. And some of those documents are altered based on, like a work visa, for instance, of where they are supposedly working. And then, of course, they're not. Some are across the border unlawfully. But we've seen it. I've seen it throughout my 3 decades plus in law enforcement. It's not something that is, a one-off. This happens more than people think. And I'm just proud of the work that our staff did, and the officers just did a fantastic job.
Well, I'm just happy you planted the seed that we cannot be naive about this, that we love our communities, we love what's going on, the positive things, but these things are going to happen. And it's fortunate that we have leadership that's going to investigate and prosecute as is. Pat?
Yeah, Chief, I wanted to talk a little bit about the assault weapon ban. Illinois passed a ban that was challenged on a constitutional basis, and the Illinois Supreme Court came back and said that it was constitutional, and therein lies the ban itself is now viable and constitutional. So I don't know if St. Charles has a propensity, the people have a propensity for carrying assault weapons, but just tell us generally from a law enforcement position how you feel about the ban and how it may aid and assist law enforcement. I assume that you don't want to roll up on a dangerous situation where people have assault weapons. That's not good for police, and it's certainly not good for anyone else.
No, and obviously, whether it's the Highland Park shooting or a number of the tragic incidents we've seen across this country, Highland Park really hit close to home for all of us. But I know this is a very controversial topic, and the Second Amendment is something that is discussed sometimes ad nauseum. So obviously there's still some appeals going on, but as of 1/1/24, those that possess some of these banned weapons, there's about 200 assault type banned weapons moving forward. Folks that possess these weapons lawfully have to register them by 1/1/24 or January 1st. Moving forward, then about 200 will be banned after that effective date. There's some capacity changes on some of the magazines. So for instance, a long gun or a rifle, if you will, the capacity cannot exceed 10 rounds, whereas a handgun can't exceed 15. There's some stocks and some grips and some different things that are banned because of this. We do a really good job here in St. Charles with working with the state police and the ATF. So when we come across weapons, whether it's a CCL carrier or an assault weapon, and we do, once again, it's kind of like human trafficking. People don't think that these things exist. They do. We come across weapons more than probably people think. Once again, we'll do the best we can as law enforcement to work within the confines of the law. To speak on which side of the fence I sit on, I'll be honest with you. 3+ decades in law enforcement, I like to say that it's my job not to write the laws or really even comment on them. My job is to enforce them. And if I have a problem with the interpretation piece, That's what the state attorney's office does for me and my staff. So I try to just keep my head pointed north, and I try to do that with my staff. Whatever happens with the challenges, we'll move forward.
Yeah, I mean, the point of a ban, and I want to put words in your mouth, but the point of the ban, obviously, is that these weapons have the ability to shoot and kill a variety of people within seconds, as opposed to, the hunting rifle or the handgun or whatever it is. Maybe somebody can outrun the bad guy with a handgun, but when somebody is armed with a AK-47 or whatever it is, an Uzi or whatever it is, your odds go down. And then of course the guy who's locked up in his house when the police arrive, he's fully armed. This is almost a military situation for the police. It's a general protection, I think, for people in a mass situation as well as law enforcement. And I understand the Second Amendment situation, but this has to be a good thing from the perspective of people who have kids in schools, people who want to go to a parade, people who want to go shopping in a mall, and police officers who need protection every day.
Yeah, and in my career, unfortunately, I've seen a number of instances where I've seen what an assault weapon can do to the human body, and these are weapons of war, and you don't want them in the wrong hands of people. Granted, there are some recreational uses in things, and that's where I think the argument comes in. But as a police chief, I want my officers safe and well equipped to deal with situations. And obviously, we don't want to come across an armed confrontation with a person with an assault weapon.
And Pat, if I may, I can understand the chief's position. He doesn't want to get political about this. He's there to enforce the laws. But I can't not believe that on a weekly basis, perhaps, particularly after events like Highland Park happen, I believe you get input from our citizenry on both sides of the equation. People probably call you and say, we don't want to see our gun rights taken away. And you also get calls from individuals who say, please help us do something to stop this. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And, I'm good friends with the police chief in Highland Park, Lou Jogman, known him for many, many years. And I've been to some after action reviews of that incident, and in a number of them I've seen throughout my career. And I'll tell you, there's push from both sides. And, look what happened in Racine and some of the aftermath. Just in general, I don't care if it's a parade situation up in Waukesha, Wisconsin, or Highland Park. Our state of awareness and our level of preparedness on any event in town is exponentially more sensitive than it's ever been. And we equip our officers with the greatest training and equipment, but we go to great extremes to make sure we have a safe environment. But obviously, an assault weapon being brought to a situation like Highland Park was just catastrophic. Just catastrophic.
And one last question before we go back to a commercial and bring in your nephew. Could you alert our audience as a police chief, the types of and nature of criminal activity that is quite common in the western suburbs? You interact with all the chiefs of the Chicagoland period, and so what can people expect around here on a regular basis, regardless of whether we have competent police departments or not?
Well, I know you said it early on, and both you and Pat agree, and St. Charles is a wonderful community. I'm so proud to be here and be the police chief here. But we're not exempt from crime, and especially patterns of crime. Crime knows no boundaries. So the western suburbs in particular, and I think a lot of Chicagoland, we've seen some organized crime crews hit, whether it's parking lots searching for cars to steal, equipped with maybe key fobs where they can morph a key fob and get into a car. We've seen retail theft crews that kind of hit a large area of Chicagoland. From the drug side of it, unfortunately, we've seen fentanyl and some of the street drugs that some people sometimes acquire. That's been deadly for us. We've had some overdose deaths. We're big on using Narcan here in St. Charles. All of our officers are equipped with with Narcan to try to neutralize the effects of, the opioid. It's a beta blocker. So all of my officers are equipped with Narcan. So really, we're sensitive to a lot of things. We work with our partners quite a bit. We do a lot of meetings, share information. A lot of times, some of these events that take place throughout Chicagoland, a lot of us are working and communicating throughout our shifts, especially investigators, with bulletins and things and meetings. So try to do the best job we can here, but obviously we've had some instances like human trafficking where public sees what's going on.
On a personal note, Chief, I don't mind saying this publicly that I'm so proud that it was under my watch that you were brought in as the police chief of St. Charles. The city of St. Charles is very proud of you and your efforts. And speaking for Pat, a former prosecutor, and myself, a former mayor, we could carry this and Paul, our producer, who has a lot of opinions on a variety of things. We could go on for a couple of hours probably talking this stuff back and forth, but time has run away, and we've got somebody in the wings that you know very well that we want to have a little conversation with on another topic, and that would be your nephew, Trevor Keegan, starting guard for the second in the nation ranked University of Michigan. So thank you, Chief, for joining us this morning, and we're going to take a small break, and when we come back, we're going to dialogue with Trevor Keegan. You stay tuned.
Thanks, Chief.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. You face technology challenges every day that threaten to steal business, compromise data, and bring your business down. Without a good partner to help protect from phishing, ransomware, viruses, data breaches, employee turnover, and cybersecurity threats, your business is at risk of losing everything. TechWorks has been the trusted IT partner to Fox Valley businesses for over 20 years, keeping systems secure and providing extraordinary customer service, helping your business grow. Call TechWorks today at 630-482-2227 or visit www.techworks.com. That's TechWorks with a Q, TEQ Works, and see how TechWorks IT service can transform and secure your business. We're back, and as promised, the young man on the screen is Trevor Keegan, starting guard for the Wolverines of the University of Michigan, currently ranked number 2 in the nation, and been ranked for a long time. And Trevor has experienced some championship caliber competition. And Trevor, welcome to Just a Couple of Guys. We appreciate you from Ann Arbor taking some time today to join us for some conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and being out here with my uncle. It's a first. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Well, I know he's very proud of you, and as is your whole family. And I've had a chance to see you play, and it's been a big treat for me. Let's just start at the beginning here. You went to Crystal Lake South High School and played there, and you were all state. Talk about the process of, high school, how you felt about your performance there, and then the recruiting process that got you where you're at here at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, so obviously I went to Crystal Lake South. It's first it was kind of like a pretty good conference for football in Illinois, and it's nothing special, but growing up, like I looked up to guys like Brian Balaga, like Chris Trevor, guys like that. And I always wanted to be like them, but I never knew it was possible because not many people came out of our area going to Division I colleges. So the recruiting process started pretty early for me. Actually, it was I went to a camp at Northwestern after my freshman year. I was just doing a camp, I thought it was just kids camp. And then one of the recruiting guys was like, "Hey, you get to meet Coach Fitzgerald after." I was like, "Oh my God, I get to meet Coach Fitzgerald." And we sat down in his office, and he offered me a scholarship, and that's kind of when everything changed for me. And then after that, I just kept on rolling, doing camps. I Obviously, you have to play well on the field. And after that, I just kept getting offers and offers, and I finally got my offer from here. And it was kind of like my dream offer, since my mom's 20 miles north of Ann Arbor. That's where she was born. So it kind of all just made sense, and I committed here.
Pat?
Well, of course, I used to live in Michigan, Trevor, and it's a wonderful state. It's beautiful. Ann Arbor is one of the greatest college towns in the nation. So you got recruited by Michigan. Who was the coach at that time?
It was Coach Harbaugh still.
Was it Harbaugh?
Yeah.
And what? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. How big are you?
As of right now, or when I was in high school?
As of right now.
I'm about 6'6", 315.
Wow. And as guards go, that's standard?
Usually they're typical like 6'4", 6'5". So I'm on the taller spectrum, but the weight's about the same.
Now, do you play any tackle at all or center?
I'm usually just an interior guy. I play right guard and center. I played left guard for a game. I'm a left tackle for a game last year. I didn't go too well, so sticking to the interior.
Well, I mean, if you have aspirations to become a pro, they kind of like you to be flexible and have some the ability to play multiple. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, so you have graduated from Michigan. You're a grad student, is that right?
That's correct.
So you got extra eligibility that way, is that right?
Yeah. So obviously I redshirted my freshman year, and then there was considered a COVID year, so everybody had an extra year for that. So technically, I have another year after this year.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a student athlete. Of course, I can't go back to my days at NIU and relate, but tell the average person what that means. I mean, you're up at 6 watching film. Harbaugh's in your dorm room making you do push-ups. How's it work?
So everybody's always like, oh, it's like the hardest thing ever. It's super hard, but as long as you have like really good time management, you got your head on your shoulders, I mean, it's gonna be pretty easy. I mean, obviously, my freshman year was really tough because everybody always told me I was the greatest thing ever, but then you come in and you don't play. I mean, that was probably the most challenging thing, and then just getting up to play speed. But once you figure it out, you just trust yourself and your work ethic. I mean, it'll just take care of itself. And obviously, it's definitely been one of my best 5 years of my life. You get to meet people, experience new things with others. So I mean, and obviously getting a degree from Michigan and playing top line football. I mean, you can't beat that.
No. Do you when you say time management, obviously you guys travel too, so you miss a lot of classes during the week and you have to make all that up? Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
so we usually have our classes just Monday through Thursday because we travel on Fridays, so you don't really miss as much class as you'd think.
Okay. You decided to come back. You could have left, but you decided to come back, and can you explain for us why it is that you did? Obviously, if it were me, I'd like to play as much college football as possible, but why did you decide to come back?
Yeah, I just felt like I had unfinished business, and the team, we didn't reach our end goal, and I had personal goals that I didn't really achieve last year, and that gut feeling we had after losing to TCU, it didn't sit well with me. And then in the grand scheme of things, I didn't really like my draft status, so and it was like a little bit too big of a spectrum, to leave. So I wanted to come back and do the last go around with the guys, and obviously a lot of my other buddies, stayed as well, and we just wanted to win a championship together. So that was pretty much the main thing.
When you say draft status, obviously you're able to figure that out somehow, or where do you stand in terms of that?
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting process because I mean, you talk to your coaches here, you talk to Coach Harbaugh here, you talk to our director of scouting here. You hear about scouts, you put your name in the scouting thing that gives you an idea. You talk to your agents. So I mean, when they're telling you so many different things, I mean, you kind of just want to roll with your gut feeling because, I mean, when you get projected like middle to late third round to late sixth round, I mean, that's a lot of dollars in comparison. So I just felt like I wanted to stay with that, with all that information.
Do you think you're a better player this year than you were last?
Most definitely. I think I've grown in, a lot of aspects. Definitely stronger, and, just knowing the game more, and reading defense is a lot better.
Okay, right.
I think you've seen this magazine. You're running your teammate and running back for University of Michigan is on the cover. But as I open it up, look who's there. There you are in the middle. Not in the middle, on my right side. And it's quite an extensive article. You're quoted quite a bit about NIL money, name, image, and likeness money that comes in. But before I get to that, one more point on Pat's point about draft status and going pro. In this article, right below your picture, there's a comment made that says, and I want you to just comment on this. In the NFL, O-line studs like Zinter, your teammate, and Keegan are often valued more highly than the running backs who rule the NIL market. In other words, in college, the running backs seem to be the all-stars. But what is your thought about that comment, that as you move to a pro status, you're really valued even more?
Yeah, so obviously the NFL is a really sticky situation for running backs. It seems like their value isn't the same as what they used to be, and they seem deemed as like replaceable per se. Whereas in offensive linemen, if you have some stud offensive linemen, they can really change the game for you and your team. And it's unfortunate because I have some friends that are obviously in the league and are going to play in the league, and they're really mad about that. But for me personally, I'm not I'm not too mad about the offensive lineman getting paid a lot. But I mean, especially in college, I mean, they're the one getting the jersey sales, they're the one putting up touchdowns. So I mean, they have the most followers, all the girls love them. So I mean, obviously they're going to get the more NIL money, and I mean that's just the way it is.
Moving into this NIL conversation, I go back to the court's ruling that it was proper for student athletes to receive compensation. And I think back, and Pat has his own views, and I think we agree upon this, that at the time it was passed, it was good to hear that student athletes can receive some money. I was always aggravated when I read the story that one of your, obviously your biggest rival, Ohio State, their quarterback at the time, they won the national championship, and he got a ring. And then he wanted to sell the ring. And they punished Ohio State and sanctions for him selling the ring. To me, that's ludicrous. It's his ring.
Yep.
It's your ring. It's anybody's ring. It's your possession. Why would the NCAA do something like that? So that aggravated for me to start, and that's why we got into this whole conversation. So having said that, I'm going to read another quote from this magazine article. Purists fear that NIL would corrupt athletes and splinter locker rooms. But at Michigan, those opportunities have helped. Comment on that opening line in this article, why at Michigan you see NIL and the whole NIL process, and obviously some people receiving more than others and some receiving nothing. Why does that help?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the way Michigan attacked NIL. A lot of other universities and programs, they're recruiting kids and promising them money up front. And I know at a lot of programs, once these kids get there, they aren't receiving anywhere near the amount that they were promised. And it's definitely stirring up problems in the locker room. And I know a lot of guys, that aren't from, economically stable households. And, when they get there, if they're, I mean, you go to these schools because you're offered X and O amount of money and your family needs it. You go there, you don't receive the money. I mean, that's going to definitely hurt their reputation. The family is definitely going to be mad, because the kid made a decision based off of that, which is unfortunate. But Michigan's attack on NIL, it's, once you play and you play really well on the field and you earn your stripes in the locker room and stuff like that, that's when you'll start earning the money. So basically it's very similar to like NFL. Like if you're playing good and you're playing on the field, you're going to earn more money, and that's kind of the way we do it at Michigan.
So, if I may, Ray,
Yes, go ahead, Pat.
the money is doled out by the university as opposed to you getting your own NIL deals. Is that what you're saying?
So it's a little bit of a combination.
Okay.
Obviously we have donors at all schools, and then for me, like social media is a big thing, like posting and advocating for businesses, and they'll pay me for that, or go out there and go to their business and wear their gear or something like that. So it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
The article talks about the fact that your teammate Blake Corum, is probably the highest paid NIL athlete there. He receives the most benefit. It also talks about how gracious he is to his teammates. Do you see that happening a lot? And are there players that receive next to nothing?
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I mean, Blake's obviously one of the most humble guys I've met. He's very generous. I remember we went to the golf course for lunch during the camp, and he wanted to pay for everybody. I don't know if he's making the most. I mean, I'd probably say JJ is.
All right.
Yeah, he's I mean, if we don't give up a
quarterback,
JJ's taking us to Ruth Chris typically every Thursday. So and he's giving us some pretty nice gifts. So I'd probably have to say JJ's up there. So
okay.
But I've seen, two great dudes, very generous, and they're very high thought of in, our program and in the locker room.
Do you think, may I rank, do you think maybe the better way of dealing with this money is it kind of, my idea would be to pool it into some fund and everybody get an equal share? Do you think that's something that could work, or would there be jealousy because there are players like JJ, who's obviously the face of the Wolverines, perhaps, versus the third string offensive guard? I mean, do you see that as a problem, or do you see that as maybe a more democratic way to deal with this money?
Yeah, so we actually have this brand called Empower, and Coach Harbaugh and a couple people travel around the United States talking to donors and stuff. And this was for everybody on the team to get equally paid throughout the year. So I think with this, everybody gets paid every trimester of the year, and I think it's I don't know what it is exactly, but it's probably like 5 or 10K. So every person on the team will be earning the same thing for every trimester of the year.
And that's above and beyond what you would make on your own with Joey's car lot down the street who wants you to come down and sit in a Tesla or something, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And one last question, Trevor, and this gets into the whole area of transfer portals. Like your view on the matter, some of us think that the transfer portal becomes, in effect, a college free agent vehicle, where you have a year. Hartman's a good example of Notre Dame. You have a year of eligibility left, and so you decide to see where the best deal is. Your thoughts on the whole transfer portal?
Yeah, so obviously I think it's a good thing, but obviously I think it could definitely harm college football in some ways. I know for some guys, they work their whole life and they just want to get on the field, and sometimes they don't have the opportunity to at the school they choose the first time. But I mean, when you got guys, transferred 3 or 4 times, it seems like they're the problem, and they shouldn't get as many opportunities as some others. But I definitely do see guys, they want to get a better draft stock, going from a lower Power 5 school to, one of the bigger schools. I mean, I understand that. But we actually did I think a survey or whatever for Michigan. And if you stay, you have a 68% chance of going to the NFL. If you leave and transfer, you only have an 8% chance. So that's like the research we've done on that. So obviously the grass isn't always greener on the other side, but some guys, luck out and find a better opportunity.
And I just use one example, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's just distasteful, in my opinion, that at Colorado, Sanders goes in there and just about wipes out the whole team and brings in just this influx of a number of players and basically reshapes the team. I'm not sure that's what college football was all about when it was first created.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually had a buddy from here transfer there, and he transferred after 4 months. So that tells you everything you need to know about it. But I mean, hey, he's changing college football right now, so we'll see how that rolls.
Well, let me say this. I just got back from Ireland, and I'm on the screen right now with 3 great Irish guys, Crimmins and 2 Keegans. And I really enjoyed this conversation this morning with both of you. I know Pat has as well, and Pat and I, we argue about that, but we know the Irish are pretty tough. And so anyway, to both Chief Jim Keegan and to Trevor Keegan's nephew and starting guard, right guard at the University of Michigan, and our thanks to both of you for the we really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank you, guys. And Trevor, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks for
See you
having me.
soon.
Yep.
Good luck at Nebraska this week. They'll be gunning for you, so you better have your A game going.
That's the plan always.
All right.
All right.
Care.
James Keegan and Trevor Keegan. A word from our sponsors, and Pat and I'll be back with some closing comments. You stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karas Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookies, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookies is the gyros plate with the saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich. But I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world, the salads are delicious, great burgers, tacos, all-American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. RookiesPub.com. I'll see you there.
All right, we're back, and it's always good to hear from the sponsors. Ray, a couple of things I thought we could talk about after the interviews with Chief Keegan and his nephew, Trevor. One of them is this NIL money, which I don't know how you feel about it generally, but it just smacks to me of they've taken the concept of sharing the wealth with the athlete and kind of turned it into each grab your own and the heck with the rest of the team, and you get what you get, and that's the end of that. And then there's the idea of some teams, because of their location, geography, their winning record, their coach, they get more money than other teams, and it just seems unfair to me. What do you think?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. As an economics minor in college, I do believe in the marketplace. And you know, I love the fact that there are great players, there are good players, there are mediocre players, and then there's Rudy. All right. Having said all that, you know, having said all that, I really believe that, like you say, they should be entitled to gather some money for their benefit. But in this case, probably it should be a little bit more socialistic, to be honest with you. This article in the Sports Illustrated I referred to lists the top 10 athletes and how much money they're hauling in. The young gymnast from LSU is bringing in $2 million a year. Trevor referred to the fact that the quarterback may be the highest paid at Michigan. The article was very complimentary to Michigan, saying they've overcome this, the haves and the have-nots, and they're working to keep cohesiveness. That's great, but I don't believe that happens at every university. And so, to your point, I really do believe that there are the have and have-nots, and at some point, it's going to create a smear in college football. And then I referred to the Sanders, that had nothing to do with the NIL, is the portal thing, but I referred to the Sanders thing. But another example of not passing the smell test. 70, 80 players, dear God, almost overhaul the whole team, bringing people in. It sounds like, you know, you're bringing a band in for a reception. Dear God, it was.
And this whole idea,
I don't like it.
this whole idea of private enterprises within the state or the geography of the college giving money to this program. I thought the idea was that Michigan brought in all this money. Michigan, for example, brought in all this money to the university through the football program, and that was the money that was going to be used. But now they're going outside for more money or different money. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, Coca-Cola, we want you to contribute $1 million to the NIL program. I mean, we understand, obviously, with government, we understand that money can lead to all sorts of bad things here. And you're talking about kids, and it's not a good situation, I don't think. And when you talk about Deion Sanders, I think that program might just be the program that brings a federal Senate subcommittee hearing about all this stuff. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be surprised on that, Pat, at all. And then you have the fact that these kids are negotiating with their families. They can't have an agent yet. So with their families, individual contracts at Subway or whatever, a car dealership. And I don't mind that too much, but like you said, let's spread the wealth out here. I cannot see how even a starting, but let's say less than a great player on the team who's making peanuts can't view this with a little bit of animosity. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts.
Let's not forget, and we'll use Michigan for an example again. What is that? 60 grand a year at Michigan?
It's one of the finest universities in America.
4 or 5.
Base price 60,000.
4, 5, 6 years of eligibility at Michigan is 300 grand. Now, I understand that goes back to the old debate. Well, they're being paid through tuition, but now they still get the tuition plus all this other money. Right. So there should be kind of a needs test or something. And then, as Trevor pointed out, well, promises were made, and then there were promises broken. Well, you got fraud in the inducement. You're inducing a kid to come into your program by tantalizing him with this, that, and the other thing, and then they don't pony up. What's the kid supposed to do at that point? And how are the coaches and the programs getting away with this fraud? It's amazing to me, and I'm certain that the federal government's going to be involved here real soon.
I agree with you on that. There's going to be some, investigation at some point in time. That's nothing. There's nothing to say about the fact that other than I think right now most of these kids are working in good faith. There's probably some shenanigans somewhere. A lot of these other kids who are receiving this kind of money are working in good faith and they're still fine students. And I wish them the best. But I like to see this thing flattened out a little bit.
Yeah.
Pat, on the other thing,
I'm not blaming the kid at all on this.
Right? No, I know that. I don't. Yeah. On the other thing, the Safety Act. And I know this was one of our big topics the whole first year of our podcast, and now it's implemented. And you guys were talking before we went on the air about a case right here in Kane County. I don't know. I have my doubts about the whole thing, and I still like bail. I understand the argument. I understand how if you are poor or you don't have the ability to raise money to bail yourself out and you're still presumed innocent, how that's a problem. But when you talk about violent crime or dangerous crime, then you've got other situations. Now, we've had this in effect since September 18th, I believe. And yesterday, apparently in court, there was a situation where the state's attorney's office failed to notify the victim on a particular case where there was a petition filed and they were seeking to deny the defendant's pretrial release. Well, apparently they didn't notify the victim, and that was kind of a predicate to the whole thing. So they went through the effort of filing the petition to deny the release. They didn't notify the victim. The judge really had no choice but to release him. So this guy, Mr. Zimmerman, who's presumed innocent, of course, and was charged with a variety of cases regarding domestic violence.
and some serious allegations, is now out of custody. He's on an electric home monitoring system apparently, and he's been told to stay away from the victim. But as the paper points out, the allegations against Mr. Zimmerman, of course, again presumed innocent, is that he repeatedly stomped on the face of the victim with his foot, causing the victim to have fractured facial bones. He's got a variety of prior domestic battery charges, which were dismissed. Apparently, the victim was involved in those decisions. And then he was charged with a previous felony for domestic battery, aggravated domestic battery, and he was given deferred prosecution. So he's got a history, as I've alleged it. They did the right thing. They filed the verified petition to deny his release, but then they failed to have the victim present. So I don't like the idea that the victim has to be present at all. You're just victimizing the victim again. But the fact that they didn't follow the rule left the court with no choice. And this is exactly the type of situation that we're talking about. Now he's free and bad things can happen. Mr. Zimmerman might be the greatest guy in the world. I'm just saying in general and in theory, bad things could happen in this scenario.
The word you used was victim that dominated part of that conversation. And to me, that's what the Safety Act does not focus on. I've been lucky in my life. I'm an older man now, and I've been lucky in my life that I've not been the victim of any kind of serious crime. But I can tell you, I know people who have, and believe me, and I know you have, because you prosecuted for 13 years or more. The fear, the injustice that dominates a criminal act and what happens to the victim. And all I can say is, I don't think the victim in this particular legislation gets enough attention.
It seems to me
the focus is on the darn criminal, alleged criminal defendant, and that's fine. You got to protect rights. I don't deny that. But what are the victims' rights? That's just my bottom line.
It seems as though I think that Springfield is run by Cook County, and Cook County, obviously, they have a problem with their system of justice and the turnaround time and everything. Right. And not every county has that problem.
Right.
But at the same point in time, we're kind of enacting laws that affect everybody because of one county, and we need to do a better job of writing the laws so that common sense and logic dominate the laws. This is going to be a problem. This is exactly what we were afraid of. This cashless bail would result in dangerous people being out on the streets. And then, of course, the procedural aspect of it is perhaps a little too difficult to manage. I'm not excusing the fact they didn't notify the victim, but it might be difficult to manage, and that's not right either, because this guy's out on a technicality, I guess, for want of a better term.
That was well said, and I think the highlight of that last comment was the dominance of, in this case, the Democrats in Springfield, and more particularly the reverence of Cook County and their goofy system there that really has been under criticism for a long time. You've hit the nail on the head on that. We need to bring it back a little bit to a more moderate position, in my opinion. Hey, Pat, this was a great day. I thought our podcast went very well. I really enjoyed the conversation with both Chief Keegan and Trevor Keegan, and I hope our audience did as well.
I'm just trying to figure out whether I have any eligibility to go back to NIU and play ball, get a little of that money. You know what I'm saying?
Make a big donation to the fund out there, and maybe they'll talk to you about that. So I think it's time. I think the signal suggests it's time for us to say goodbye. So for our crack producer, the affable kind owner of Nexus Publishing, Mr. Paul Stucco, who, by the way, welcomes Southern Cal, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington to the Big Ten so he can plot numerous trips to the West Coast in years ahead. And for Pat Crimmins, who welcomes anyone new to the MAC conference so he can welcome them to DeKalb, Illinois, the home of his alma mater, Northern Illinois University. This is Ray Rogina, still angry at not being offered a tryout for the lead in the movie Rudy. Wishing you all a glorious, glorious October where the days are shorter and the nights are longer. We will be back next week with another interesting guest on Just a Couple of Guys. Until then, for Pat, so long, everybody.